The moment Marcus Johnson pushed open that hospital door, he had no idea his entire life was about to change. He was just looking for the vending machine, exhausted after hours in the pediatric ward with his 5-year-old son Elijah. Instead, he found Sarah, pale, thin, and hooked to machines that beeped a fragile countdown. Their eyes met across the sterile room, and something inexplicable passed between them. Neither could have imagined that this accidental meeting would lead to the most beautiful year of their lives. If you're moved by stories of hope found in the darkest places, hit that like button and subscribe to witness more incredible journeys that remind us of the power of human connection. Marcus stood frozen in the doorway, embarrassment washing over him. "I'm so sorry," he stammered, backing away. "Wrong room." "Wait," the woman called, her voice surprisingly strong despite her frail appearance. "Are you lost?" He nodded, suddenly aware of how disheveled he must look after spending the night in an uncomfortable hospital chair. "Trying to find coffee. My son's asleep upstairs." "There's a machine down the hall to the left," she said with a small smile. "I've memorized this floor's layout. Not much else to do when you're stuck here for weeks." Marcus thanked her and should have left. But something in her eyes, a spark of life despite her obvious illness, made him linger. "I'm Marcus." "Sarah," she replied. "And honestly, I'd kill for some company that isn't wearing scrubs." That first conversation lasted 20 minutes. Marcus learned Sarah had leukemia, was 32, and had been fighting for 3 years. What he didn't learn until later was that her doctors had just told her she had approximately 6 months left. When Marcus finally returned to Elijah's room, his son was still sleeping peacefully. The pneumonia that had brought them to the hospital was responding well to treatment. Marcus sat beside his son's bed, thinking about the woman downstairs. There was something about her, a warmth, a presence that seemed to fill the sterile room despite her diminished physical state. The next morning, before checking out, Marcus found himself walking back to Sarah's room with a coffee in hand. He told himself it was just to be kind, but deep down, he knew there was more to it. "You came back," Sarah said, genuine surprise in her voice. "I brought reinforcements," he replied, holding up the coffee. "Hospital coffee is terrible, but it's better than no coffee." She laughed, and the sound transformed her face. For a moment, Marcus could see past the illness to the vibrant woman beneath. "How's your son?" she asked, taking the cup gratefully. "Better. We're heading home today." Marcus hesitated. "He's 5. His name is Elijah." "That's a beautiful name," Sarah said. "Does he look like you?" Marcus pulled out his phone and showed her a picture. "Spitting image, according to my mother." Though he got his mother's smile, thank goodness. "Where is she?" Sarah asked carefully. "Gone," Marcus replied simply. "Car accident when Elijah was 2. It's been just us since then." Sarah nodded, understanding in her eyes. "Life has a way of changing our plans, doesn't it?" Before leaving, Marcus did something impulsive. He asked for her number. "Maybe Elijah and I could visit sometime. Bring you some real coffee?" The surprise on Sarah's face quickly melted into a smile. "I'd like that. But Marcus..." She hesitated. "You should know I'm not exactly a long-term prospect." Marcus looked at her directly. "I'm just offering coffee and company. No pressure." 3 days later, Marcus and Elijah returned. The boy was shy at first, hiding behind his father's legs, but Sarah had a way with children. By the end of the visit, Elijah was sitting on her bed, showing her his favorite action figures. These visits became regular. Twice a week, Marcus would bring Elijah after school. Sometimes they'd bring board games or books. Other times, they'd just talk while Elijah colored or played with his toys. Sarah began to look forward to these visits more than anything. The days between were filled with treatments that left her nauseated and weak, but knowing Marcus and Elijah would return gave her something to fight for. One evening, after Elijah had fallen asleep in the chair beside Sarah's bed, she and Marcus talked late into the night. "Why do you keep coming back?" she asked. "You barely know me." Marcus considered the question carefully. "At first, I wasn't sure. But now I know. When I'm with you, I feel like I can breathe again. Since losing Elijah's mom, I've been going through the motions. Being a dad, working, surviving. But not really living." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "That's ironic. I'm dying, and you make me feel more alive than I have in years." Their relationship deepened, evolving into something neither had expected. Marcus found himself sharing things he'd never told anyone, his fears about raising Elijah alone, the guilt he carried about his wife's death, his dreams for the future. Sarah listened without judgment, offering insights that only someone facing their own mortality could provide. For Sarah, Marcus and Elijah became the family she'd always wanted but thought she'd never have. Her own parents had passed years ago, and she had no siblings. Her illness had isolated her from friends who couldn't handle the reality of her diagnosis. But Marcus never flinched from the hard parts, the days when she was too sick to talk, the moments of fear that would overwhelm her. 3 months after they met, Sarah was released from the hospital. Her doctors wanted her to spend her remaining time at home, making memories rather than enduring more ineffective treatments. The night before she left, Marcus sat beside her bed, holding her hand. "What happens now?" she asked, fear evident in her voice. "Now you come home with us," Marcus said simply. Sarah stared at him. "What?" "Unless you don't want to," he added quickly. "But Elijah and I have a spare room. It's small, but it gets good light. And we'd be there to help." "Marcus, you can't take care of a dying woman and a 5-year-old. "Watch me," he said with determination. "Sarah, these past months, you've become family to us. Let us be there for you." After much discussion, Sarah agreed. The spare room in Marcus's modest home became hers, filled with her few belongings and brightened with flowers that Marcus brought home regularly. Elijah was thrilled to have Sarah there permanently. He didn't fully understand her illness, but he knew she needed extra care and love. He would bring her water when she was taking her medications, or crawl into her bed on bad days to read her stories, reversing the usual parent-child dynamic in a way that touched Sarah deeply. Marcus arranged to work from home more often, juggling his responsibilities as a graphic designer with caring for both Sarah and Elijah. It wasn't easy, but seeing Sarah's face light up when he brought her tea or hearing her laugh with Elijah made every sacrifice worthwhile. As weeks passed, something unexpected happened. Despite her prognosis, Sarah began to improve slightly. Her doctors were cautious, warning that such improvements were often temporary, but Sarah chose to embrace each good day as a gift. "I think it's you too," she told Marcus one evening as they sat on the porch swing, watching Elijah chase fireflies in the yard. "You've given me a reason to fight." Marcus squeezed her hand. "We're pretty selfish. We want to keep you around as long as possible." That night, under a sky full of stars, Marcus kissed Sarah for the first time. It was gentle, almost hesitant, both of them aware of the fragility of their situation. "I'm falling in love with you," he whispered. "And it terrifies me." Sarah touched his face. "I fell for you the moment you walked into my hospital room looking for a vending machine." Their relationship deepened, though both were acutely aware of the shadow hanging over them. They chose to live in the moment, creating memories that would sustain Marcus and Elijah after Sarah was gone. They took weekend trips when Sarah felt strong enough, to the beach, to a nearby lake, to a children's museum that Elijah loved. They had picnics in the park and movie nights at home. Sarah taught Elijah to bake cookies using her grandmother's recipe. Marcus took countless photos, capturing every smile, every moment of connection. 5 months after Sarah moved in, Marcus proposed. They were in the backyard, stringing lights for Elijah's birthday party the next day. I know what you're going to say, Marcus said before Sarah could respond. That it's impractical. That we don't know how much time we have. But that's exactly why I'm asking. I want to be your husband for whatever time we have left. Sarah, tears streaming down her face, said yes. They were married 2 weeks later in a simple ceremony in their backyard. Elijah served as best man, proudly carrying the rings. Sarah wore a simple white dress and a crown of wildflowers. She was thin and needed to sit for most of the ceremony, but her eyes shone with a happiness few thought possible for someone in her condition. Their honeymoon was a weekend at a cabin by a lake, with Elijah staying with Marcus's mother. It was during these quiet days, away from doctors and treatments, that Sarah shared her deepest fear. I'm afraid Elijah will forget me, she admitted as they sat by the water. He's so young. Marcus held her close. We won't let that happen. We'll tell him stories. Show him pictures. Make sure he knows how much you loved him. The months that followed their wedding were a mixture of joy and sorrow. Sarah had good days where she could help Elijah with homework or cook dinner with Marcus. She had bad days where she could barely leave her bed. Through it all, their love deepened, transforming into something that transcended the physical limitations of Sarah's condition. As her health declined, Sarah began creating memory boxes for both Marcus and Elijah, filling them with letters, small gifts, and mementos. For Elijah, she recorded videos of herself reading his favorite books, sharing life advice, and simply telling him how much she loved him. For Marcus, she wrote letters to be opened on anniversaries, birthdays, and difficult days. I want to be there for you both, even when I can't be physically present, she explained. A year after they met, Sarah's condition worsened significantly. The doctors gave her weeks, possibly days. Marcus took a leave of absence from work to be with her constantly. One evening, as the sun set outside their bedroom window, Sarah asked Marcus to bring Elijah in. The boy climbed carefully onto the bed beside her, sensing the solemnity of the moment. I need to tell you both something important, Sarah said, her voice weak but determined. Meeting you was the greatest gift of my life. Before you, I was just waiting to die. You taught me how to live again. She turned to Elijah, touching his cheek gently. You, my sweet boy, showed me what it means to be a mother. I may not have given birth to you, but you are my son in every way that matters. To Marcus, she said, you found me when I was lost. You loved me when I thought I was unlovable. You gave me a family when I thought it was too late. 3 days later, Sarah passed away peacefully at home, with Marcus holding her hand and Elijah asleep beside her. She was 33 years old and had been married to Marcus for just over 7 months. The grief that followed was overwhelming, but Marcus found strength in the love they had shared and in caring for Elijah. The boy processed his loss in waves, sometimes seeming fine and other times overcome with sadness. Is Sarah with mommy now? He asked one night as Marcus tucked him in. Yes, Marcus answered, his throat tight. And they're both watching over us. In the months that followed, Marcus discovered the full extent of Sarah's preparations. On Elijah's first day of first grade, he found a letter from her in the boy's lunchbox, encouraging him to be brave and make new friends. On Marcus's birthday, he received a package she had arranged to be delivered, containing a watch she had saved for and a letter that made him both laugh and cry. 2 years after Sarah's passing, Marcus started a foundation in her name, providing support to single parents battling serious illnesses. He shared their story on social media, and it quickly resonated with thousands of people who found hope in their unlikely love story. 5 years later, as Marcus sat on that same porch swing, watching a now 10-year-old Elijah play basketball in the driveway, he reflected on the journey that had brought them here. The pain of losing Sarah never completely disappeared, but it had transformed into something different, a bittersweet gratitude for the time they had shared. That wrong turn in a hospital corridor had led to the most profound relationship of his life. In just 1 year, Sarah had changed them forever, teaching them that love doesn't count days but makes days count. As the sun set, Marcus closed his eyes and could almost feel Sarah beside him, her presence as real as the evening breeze. Some might call their story tragic, but Marcus knew better. It was a love story, unconventional, brief, but perfect in its own way. And in the end, isn't that what we all hope for? Not a love that lasts forever, but a love that changes us forever.